Most people think that sex is what keeps a man truly invested in a relationship, but the truth is far more surprising and far more powerful. If you want a man to love you deeply and genuinely, you need to understand what really drives his heart beyond physical attraction. Let's uncover what men actually need more than sex to truly fall in love. Most men grow up in environments where emotional expression is subtly, and sometimes overtly, discouraged, where strength is equated with silence and vulnerability is mistaken for weakness. This conditioning leads to a deep internal pressure to constantly perform, protect, and provide, often at the cost of their emotional authenticity. As a result, many men carry unspoken fears, insecurities, and pain that they rarely feel safe enough to share. What most people don't realize is that emotional safety is not about coddling or rescuing a man from his emotions. It's about creating a space where he doesn't feel judged for having them. It's about being the person around whom he can drop the armor, the person who doesn't flinch when he reveals what's really going on underneath the surface. This doesn't mean you need to fix him, advise him, or constantly affirm him. It means listening without immediately reacting, allowing space for silence without pressuring him to explain, and resisting the urge to interpret his emotions through your own emotional lens. When a man feels emotionally safe with you, he starts to share not just his thoughts but his truth, his fears about failing, his doubts about being good enough, his guilt, his childhood wounds, his emotional confusion. These are things he may never voice around his friends, his family, or even himself in his own head. But when he senses that he can share them with you without being dismissed, shamed, or handled, something profound happens. Trust is built. And trust isn't loud, it's quiet. It grows in the moments where he reveals something small and sees that you're still there, not uncomfortable, not running, not trying to fix what doesn't need to be fixed. That trust becomes the foundation of real emotional intimacy, the kind of connection that sex alone can't create. In fact, for many men, feeling emotionally safe is the prerequisite to a deeper form of love, because once he feels seen and accepted in that raw, unfiltered space, he no longer has to perform to earn your love. He knows it's already there. He can finally be himself without fear of being misunderstood or emotionally abandoned. And that's when he starts giving more of himself willingly, not because he's expected to, but because it feels good to be fully known and still fully embraced. So while physical attraction might spark interest and shared goals might provide alignment, emotional safety is what allows a man to open his heart and build something lasting. Without it, everything else remains surface level. With it, everything else becomes richer, deeper, and far more real. Many men move through the world constantly being evaluated based on their performance, what they achieve, how much they earn, what they can provide, or how well they can solve problems. This unspoken standard creates a pressure to be valued only for their usefulness, not for who they are at their core. Over time, this can lead to a feeling of emotional isolation, where even in relationships they wonder if they are truly seen or just being tolerated for what they bring to the table. When a man meets someone who values him, not for the roles he plays, but for the person he is behind those roles, it's transformative. That means recognizing his character, his kindness, his thoughtfulness, his sense of humor, his vulnerability, and his way of seeing the world. It means paying attention to the little things, how he treats strangers, how he supports his friends, how he talks about the things that matter to him, and letting him know that you notice. This kind of appreciation doesn't inflate his ego, it soothes the part of him that's tired of only being good enough when he's achieving something. It reminds him that he is enough, even when he's not fixing things, not impressing anyone. And this isn't about constantly showering him with compliments or being overly affirming. It's about sincerity. It's about choosing to love the person, not just the protector, provider, or problem solver. A man who feels valued for his essence, not just his function, begins to feel safe enough to let more of himself be seen. He no longer has to wear a mask to feel loved. He doesn't have to keep proving himself to earn your affection. That's when real connection starts to take root. when he feels that even if he stripped away all the external markers of success, he'd still be enough in your eyes. Many men secretly crave that kind of unconditional recognition, but they rarely find it. Relationships often start with physical attraction or mutual goals, but those can fade or shift over time. What endures is the feeling of being loved without performance, of being desired for the man he is rather than the results he can deliver. And the paradox is, the more a man feels valued in this way, the more he wants to give, to provide, and to show up in bigger ways, not out of obligation, but from a place of genuine devotion. Because once he feels that his value isn't conditional, he becomes free to love without fear. That emotional freedom creates space for honesty, vulnerability, and lasting intimacy. When you truly see a man and love him for the deeper parts of himself, the parts he rarely shows the world, you become more than a partner. You become a safe place, a mirror of his truest self, and someone he feels a deep, irreplaceable bond with, one that goes far beyond what the world sees or expects from him. Respect and belief are two of the most underestimated emotional needs a man has when it comes to forming a deep, lasting connection, and contrary to the stereotypes, it's not about inflating his ego or stroking his pride, it's about being seen by the person he cares about most as someone who is capable, worthy, and growing. A man can receive validation from the outside world, through work, social status, or achievements, but if he doesn't feel that the woman he's with truly believes in who he is at his core, he will always feel emotionally distant and guarded in the relationship. What this kind of respect looks like in practice is subtle but powerful. It means acknowledging his intentions, even when the execution isn't perfect. It means giving him room to lead in the areas where he feels confident, and not constantly second-guessing or correcting him in a way that makes him feel small. It means letting him know that you trust his decision-making, that you see potential in him that perhaps he's only beginning to see in himself. Respect isn't blind agreement, nor is it silence. It's the energy behind your tone, the patience in your listening, and the belief in your eyes when he shares something uncertain or vulnerable. Men are far more sensitive to disrespect than they often let on, and they can instantly feel when they're being spoken to with doubt, sarcasm, or condescension. Over time, this erodes the emotional connection and makes him retreat inward, no matter how physically close you may seem. On the other hand, when he feels that his partner sees him as capable, as someone worth trusting and growing with, it builds a foundation of mutual respect that elevates the relationship. That kind of belief isn't about putting him on a pedestal, it's about seeing the effort, the values, the direction he's aiming toward, and honoring that, even if he's not there yet. When a woman stands beside a man with that level of belief, it often becomes the very fuel he needs to become the best version of himself. He wants to rise, not out of pressure, but out of inspiration. And this belief doesn't need to be shouted or constantly verbalized. It can be shown in how you hold space for him, how you support his goals without controlling them, and how you challenge him with love rather than criticism. It's the quiet confidence that says, I see what you're capable of, and I'm not going to dim that just to feel safer or more in control. That energy becomes magnetic. It creates an environment where both partners feel empowered, not diminished. And for a man, knowing that the person he's building with sees his potential, values his perspective, and still respects him through the highs and lows, creates a loyalty and emotional depth that sex alone could never match. Emotional connection is the invisible thread that turns attraction into attachment. And for a man to truly love beyond the surface level, he needs to feel emotionally bonded, not just physically satisfied. Physical chemistry might spark interest, but emotional intimacy is what sustains a relationship and makes him feel like he's with someone who understands him on a level the world rarely does. This kind of connection is not built through grand gestures or constant drama. It's formed in the subtle, consistent moments when two people are truly present with each other, sharing thoughts, feelings, and experiences without fear of judgment or misunderstanding. It's in the conversations that go deeper than the surface, where he can talk about his dreams, his frustrations, his past, and his doubts, and feel that he's not being analyzed or evaluated, but rather listened to with empathy and curiosity. Many men grow up being discouraged from expressing emotions, so when he finds someone who makes it safe to speak freely, without having to be perfect, logical, or strong all the time, he starts to develop a kind of emotional trust that becomes the backbone of real love. Emotional connection is also built through humor, shared interests, private jokes, and moments of silence that feel comfortable instead of awkward. It's knowing he can be quiet and still feel close, that he doesn't have to perform to be accepted, and that who he is behind the roles and responsibilities is enough. When a man feels that the connection goes beyond physical desire, that you're tuned into his inner world, that you can read his energy, and that you're emotionally available, he begins to associate you with peace, understanding, and emotional grounding, which is something he can't get from casual encounters or surface-level interactions. This connection becomes even more powerful when it's mutual, when you're not only creating space for his emotions but also inviting him into yours, allowing him to see the full range of your emotional reality, including your fears, joys, and imperfections. Emotional intimacy is a two-way street, and when both people are willing to be emotionally naked, not just physically present, the relationship deepens in a way that makes it incredibly difficult to walk away from. Men might not always have the language for this kind of bond, but they feel it deeply, and once they experience it, they begin to crave it more than fleeting validation. It's the difference between being around someone who excites you and someone who sees you. This emotional seeing, this shared space of openness, is where real love lives, not in the high of physical attraction, but in the comfort of emotional recognition. A man who feels emotionally connected is far more likely to invest, commit, and show up consistently, because he's not just being fulfilled on the outside, he's being understood and nourished from within. And that is the kind of connection that makes love feel not just exciting, but truly safe, lasting, and irreplaceable. One of the most important but often overlooked needs a man has in a relationship is the freedom to be fully himself without the constant pressure to meet expectations, perform emotionally, or behave in ways that feel unnatural to him. From a young age, many men are taught to suppress parts of who they are in order to be seen as strong, desirable, or acceptable. And over time, this can create an emotional mask that becomes exhausting to wear. In relationships, if a man senses that love or approval is conditional, based on how well he conforms to someone else's version of how a boyfriend or partner should act, he begins to emotionally shut down, not out of defiance, but as a way of self-preservation. Real freedom in love doesn't mean being careless or unaccountable. It means having the space to express his individuality, his quirks, his moods, and his truth without fearing that any deviation from a romantic ideal will result in criticism, guilt, or emotional withdrawal. This freedom is essential because love cannot thrive in an atmosphere of control, micromanagement, or unspoken pressure to perform. When a man feels he has the room to breathe, to speak his mind, to disagree respectfully, to take space when needed, and to make mistakes without being shamed or constantly corrected, he actually becomes more open, more grounded, and more emotionally present in the relationship. Freedom in this sense fosters trust, because it tells him, I don't need to own you to love you, and that's the kind of energy that creates emotional safety for both people. It's also worth noting that this doesn't mean never holding him accountable or pretending to be okay with things that bother you. Rather, it's about addressing those issues in a way that honors both your emotional truth and his right to be human. A man who feels trusted and respected enough to be himself will, in most cases, rise to a higher level of integrity, commitment, and love, not because he's forced to, but because he wants to. He won't feel the need to rebel, hide, or distance himself emotionally, because he'll know that love is not something he has to earn by performing perfectly. Instead, it's something he participates in freely, fully, and authentically. The irony is that the more freedom he feels within the relationship, the more loyal and connected he becomes, because that freedom allows him to come home to himself, and in doing so he comes home to you. It's this sense of being loved for who he is rather than who he's expected to be that creates a powerful emotional bond, one that is rooted in mutual respect, emotional maturity, and a deep understanding that real love doesn't limit, it liberates. And for a man who spends most of his life being told to shape himself into something for others, that kind of relationship becomes not just desirable but sacred. Men have a deep-rooted desire for progress and growth, not just in their careers or personal achievements but in their relationships and emotional lives as well, and this need often goes unnoticed or unspoken. Unlike the common misconception that men are only interested in immediate gratification or physical connection, many crave a partnership that challenges them to become better versions of themselves while feeling supported and understood. When a man senses that being with someone is not just comfortable but also transformative, that the relationship itself is a space where he can grow intellectually, emotionally, and even spiritually, it ignites a sense of purpose and commitment that goes far beyond attraction. This feeling of progress can come from many sources: engaging conversations that push his thinking, shared experiences that encourage vulnerability, mutual encouragement to pursue goals, or simply the steady knowledge that together you're building something meaningful and evolving. Men often measure their success and worth through growth, and when their partner actively participates in that journey by believing in their potential, celebrating their wins and supporting them through setbacks, it creates a powerful bond. It's not about pushing or pressuring but about creating a dynamic where both people inspire each other to reach higher and dig deeper. This mutual growth fosters a unique intimacy because it requires honesty, patience, and a willingness to face challenges together rather than avoid them. For many men, knowing that the relationship is moving forward, that it's not stagnant or stuck in routine, reassures them that their investment of time, energy, and emotion is worthwhile. It also aligns with their inner drive to provide and protect something valuable, not just materially but emotionally and spiritually. When a man feels that love is helping him evolve, he doesn't take it for granted. He feels grateful, motivated, and deeply connected. This sense of shared progress helps dissolve the fear of complacency or boredom that can plague long-term relationships, replacing it with excitement about the future and the journey ahead. Moreover, this growth is not one-sided. It's a dance where both partners lift each other up, challenge each other's blind spots, and celebrate transformations, big or small. This dynamic makes love a living, breathing experience rather than a static state, which is essential for sustaining passion and loyalty over time. In essence, a man's desire to grow with his partner taps into his need for meaning and legacy, and when a woman becomes a catalyst for that growth, she moves from being just a partner to a vital part of his identity and purpose. This kind of connection transcends superficial attraction and creates a foundation of respect, admiration, and deep affection that withstands life's inevitable ups and downs. It shows him that love is not a limitation but a source of endless possibility, and in that understanding he finds not just a lover but a lifelong teammate. In the end, true love isn't built on physical attraction alone, it's grounded in something far deeper and more enduring. Men don't just want a partner who excites them in the moment, they want someone who makes them feel emotionally safe, genuinely valued for who they are, and respected in their journey. They crave a connection where they can be fully themselves without fear, where emotional intimacy creates a bond stronger than desire, and where love becomes a source of growth and shared progress. When you offer these things, authenticity, understanding, freedom, respect, and growth, you create a love that goes beyond the surface and lasts a lifetime. That's the kind of love that transforms a relationship from fleeting attraction into an unbreakable bond. And that's the kind of love every man truly needs to feel in order to love you deeply and completely.